a computer and gives you a mouse, you have never touched a mouse throughout the whole semester, and you have come out of the university. That is why we must equip them with the knowledge, the skill, and the attitude that they require. So that you can be able to see transformation and to say you have done the job that you are expected to be doing. And that is why when you revisit what we call the framework for manufacturing technology, you begin to appreciate that the role of education today is to equip the learner with the tools. The fastest possible time. How will education
publication or research. They are causes of business failure. So if I have been fed with all threats, disadvantages, why the business will not work, I cannot be able to do it. Yeah, and that is why you will be a lecturer of entrepreneurship for 30 years and you have never started a business yourself. But you expect your students to do what? How do they start what you have never started? You will be a lecturer of agriculture and instead of taking the learners to where the cow is, you are drawing a cow well on the board and you expect them to know milking by looking at what? A cow on the board. And they know how to milk. And that is why it is in Kenya, it is in because of the knowledge-based curriculum. That is why even when we are borrowing money to put up the SDR, we cannot be able to trust our engineers to do what? Yes, so they have to give us the money and also give us the manpower. Because give our engineers the SDR and they will spend time campaigning about what? Sikuze mlima. No, I still won't No, it is about this flexible and practical. The focus is on knowledge, the skills, the attitudes and values. And then in assessment, we begin to balance between formative assessment and summative assessment. Because competence-based training is about the learner demonstrating the skills. It is the lecturer who can see whether the skills are developing or not. And so you cannot be waiting for end of semester. And then we want it to be self-paced, and we want also to have a strong link between what we are doing in the classroom and the industry. So that interaction is what will make the learners develop their competence. So basically, in competence-based, it is about shifting in our pedagogy, the approach through which we facilitate teaching and learning. So we want to move away, colleagues, from this traditional instructor-focused way of facilitating to focus on what? On the trainee, on the learner. So that if I'm coming to the lecture hall and I have a 1 hour lecture, probably I will only talk for 15 minutes and the remaining 45 minutes, the learners will be the ones doing something. Traditionally, it has been the lecturer coming here. So we are talking about what we call pedagogy of the oppressed, where the learner has no say, shifting away so that we begin to make the learner be involved in what? Construction of the knowledge. We make the learner to be active. We make them work in groups. We make them engage and share ideas. We make them generate their own learning because competence-based learning is based on what we call a philosophy of constructivism. That learning takes place when the learner is involved in the construction of the knowledge. And so you must engage the learner throughout the learning process. And then assessment to promote and diagnose the problems of learning. And that's why we are focusing on competence-based assessment. So we want to move away from this word, pedagogy of the oppressed, where the learner has no say in the learning process, where the learner is only in the lecture hall to be seen. And so you teach for a whole semester and you have not even mastered the name of any student. It is until you give them the end semester exam, then you are saying, oh, there have been very many in my class. They are more than what I've been seeing. That is what happens in many of the universities. Colleagues, if we teach today the way we taught yesterday, what happens? We rob our learners of their tomorrow. And pedagogy is like a language itself. It can either liberate or imprison ideas. It can inspire or it can suffocate the learner, depending on how you do it. In one of my lectures at KU, the lady hated men. Even if there was a sound of a chair moving, she would turn and say, and you men, what is your problem? Sasa kiti peke yake kusonga jamani, is that a problem? She never wanted men completely. Imagine the lecture would even end and she would say you cannot leave the lecture. And yet you are going for another lecture. So it can either inspire, it can give the trainees inspiration, or it can do what? Suffocate them completely. By the way we do it, some trainees will either like what they are training in, or they'll hate it completely. And that's why we need to think, how are we going to do it in a way that will help them acquire these 21st century competences, the forces that we have talked about, acquire these life skills, acquire these information and business skills by the approach that we are going to use. And that's why in the 21st century, then we begin to think about a 21st century pedagogy. Pedagogy just defined as the art or practice of teaching and learning. And we are saying in the 21st century, we want to focus on how do we use this pedagogy to help the trainees or the learners acquire those essential skills and competencies. How do we use it in order to be innovative and interactive in a way that we are facilitating the content in the right way, so that the trainees can acquire the required competencies? How do we explore the way we teach in a way that we can have discussions, we can have investigations, integrated projects, and all these approaches that help the trainee to acquire the competencies they require? And so, colleagues, allow me then to run through some of the approaches in the 21st century learning. Competence-based approaches, number one, is what we call situated learning activities, where we want to come up with what we call authentic activities. We want to come up with the field trips, with the projects that the learners can engage in, the internships that the learners can be able to do, so that they acquire the skills that are required on the market. We want those social activities like group problem solving, like community participation, like peer teaching. We want reflective activities like journaling, debriefing sessions, virtual simulations, online communities, so that the trainees are actually the ones that are engaged in the actual learning, instead of the overuse of what we are used to, the traditional lecture method. In another approach that is called problem-based learning, we begin to help the trainees develop ability to be able to identify a problem, design their own approach to how they want to solve the problem, and then be able to evaluate the outcomes. And then be able to identify a problem, and then be able to analyze that problem, develop a solution, implement the solution, and be able to evaluate the outcomes. Because where we want them to go and work, it will be about solving problems. They cannot be able to solve problems unless they got used to problem solving while at the university. So problem solving approach, very important, because we want them to develop critical thinking, we want them to develop creativity and imagination, and be able to get solutions to problems. So one critical approach is the problem solving approach. The other one is what we call the project based learning, PBL, where we want to engage the students in acquiring the knowledge. We want to make them be able to develop the skills by working on a complex real-world problem over an extended period of time. And the reason is because we want them to develop critical thinking, we want them to develop collaboration, we want to make learning to be meaningful. So are they able to define the problem or the question? Can they be able to plan and design a solution? Then make that inquiry and research, create the artifacts that they are supposed to create, then begin to test and refine the solution, and then develop the ability to communicate and even to be able to collaborate. So problem and project-based learning are going to be the two very important approaches that we need to appreciate and we need to engage our trainees in. A third approach is what we call inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning, because we want to encourage our trainees to develop the investigative ability. Can they be able to investigate? Can they be able to get a solution to a real one problem? So that we shift away from the situation where it is the teacher who came with all the information, to a situation where you can post what we call an inquiry question, and it hooks the learner, and it sends the learner to go and get a solution to a problem through inquiry, because we wanted them to develop what we call learning to learn as one of the competencies that they require in future. So we shift from the teacher-led instruction to a more dynamic, interactive learning environment where students take ownership of their own learning process through the type of inquiry questions that we pose to them, and then they go and look for a solution. Inquiry-based learning. So through orientation, where we introduce some surprising facts to the learners so that we spark that need to go and look for information. Inquiry-based learning, so that they can be able to research, they can be able to discover, they can be able to organize, they can be able to present facts, they can be able to reflect at the end of it all. Did it work? Another approach is what we call experiential learning, very common in the sciences, where we want learners to be directly involved in experiencing what they are learning. Some bit of hands-on activities, some bit of real-world experiences that help students to connect the theoretical knowledge with the practical application of that knowledge, so that they can be able to gain these practical insights into what they are learning. They can be able to connect theory with practice. They can be able to engage in activities and even engage as groups, and then they can be able to reflect on their own experiences at the end of it all. So inquiry-based learning can be used in all the learning areas. All the learning areas. Our teachers came to class to teach us history. And they taught us about the Kapenguria. They were called Kapenguria what? The Kapenguria? Were they 6 or 5? Okay. some authentic materials. It can be about preparing those questions and reflections before the class, so that by the time we are coming for the lecture, we already have enough information to be able to participate in the lecture. Flipped classroom, very important, so that learners develop ability to communicate. They can be able, when they come to class, they already know the tasks that have been assigned. They have worked with their own colleagues. They have already practiced, and now the role of the teacher as a facilitator is just to step aside and allow the trainees to take the stage so that they are engaging in the learning process. So colleagues, very important. We can also use gamification or game-based learning, which is another approach. We can also use personalized and adaptive learning so that we personalize the learning to the interest of the learner. So we have those personalized activities that we can use, interest-based projects, learning style assignment, flexible seating, even the personalized learning plan that we can engage our trainees in. And then we can also use these adaptive activities to make the sessions be very interesting so that the learners can appreciate what they are going through. And then case studies have been used so that we want the trainees to be able to solve problems. We want them to make decisions. We want them to present cases. We want them to be able to even have the ability to analyze those cases and so on. And finally, we have the blended learning or hybrid learning, which is also very essential. Where we want to combine the face-to-face engagements that we have with the learners with the online, so that we blend face-to-face instruction with what they can be able to do online, so that at the end of this course, we make learning to become as flexible as possible. Flexible as possible, so that those who cannot be able to meet you face to face, they can still be able to access the same materials online, and it brings this flexibility and it allows us to be able to personalize the learning. And this is very important for it, because where we are going as a university, we need to be able to compete with that. We need to be able, as a university, to be even teaching learners who are in Ghana, learners who are in South Africa, in Burundi, in Rwanda, in Philippines, competence-based education and training will be important to us because, number one, our students are going to have the ability to be able to graduate faster than what is happening in the university. They will develop employability skills because at the end, as we produce them from our university, they will be job ready. And everybody will appreciate that our university has given the required skills to the learners. So it will be very important for us. So what we need as a university is to begin to think, how do we redesign our curriculum so that it is competency based? How do we map the competencies that the industry requires? How do we change the way we deliver so that we are thinking about blended learning? How do we change the way we assess? Very important as we shift to competence-based curriculum. So it will start with a needs assessment. You have to move towards understanding what the industry requires, identifying the competencies for the different courses. Then you design your curriculum in a modularized way. Then you understand how to link with the industry, how to develop competence-based assessment, and how to be able to get that feedback that you require. Continuous feedback from the industry. What happens today is that most of our universities have closed themselves away from the industry. So we are just teaching and teaching without asking themselves, what does the industry require? So my key takeaway, colleagues, number one, is that we all need to appreciate that competence-based education and training will enhance employability and the skills that the learners require. And so our universities must be able to adapt to the industry. Policymakers, educators, and employers need to work together. And at the end of the day, we all need to appreciate that if learners can't learn the way we teach, then we probably should teach them the way they do it. If learners can't learn the way we teach, then we should teach them the way they learn. And that is the basis for which we all need to be able to transform education so that we have a skilled future for our country. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We would have given our advantage speaker a better round of applause. Daktari has given us a very good presentation on CBE and the paradigm shift. I would request that he take his seat. I know we have one or two questions. Yes, but then we'll ask Professor Felix Musa.
That's their university. I'm going to talk to you. Since that, my topic is mainly on big data and artificial intelligence, related to urban planning and university global affairs. What I can say is like I've come to this by what the CPET was talking about. Not only without the technology and the guy in the CPET, there is a lot of issues here and there. That is why I want to make the issue of data. And teaching computer science and technology from one university said was right about myself on the University of Nairobi as I am Victoria Fellow. Then I moved to the University of Agriculture and Technology. Then currently to the other university, which is is very important to understand. AI is like our education. It is the one which is driving whatever we are doing. The big data, what is it and why it matters? It matters because that data which we are saying now is oil. Which is better to lose money or to lose data? All of us, which is better? It's better to lose the money. Because that data which you have lost, you never recover. Look at some of you had photographs when you are taken, when you are very, if you are taken when you are very young, black and white. You have them now. The only, and even the photographs we take today, if you don't spot them well, you will never be able to get them. Because in the phone, after running through it, you get the amount. Where do you recover? Very difficult. So big data, actually when you start connection, you store that information. When you go into the process until you come to share that data. Then, in this artificial intelligence which we are talking about, in AI, especially also in science, we deeply learn models, the modeling and statistics. This particular one, which we are dealing with, which includes machine learning and the rest, is where we have the ChatGPT, which is very important. And these are that which help you in meetings and so on and so forth. Then you model that data, and then the statistics can be presented by data clustering, inference, and so on and so forth. Then the big data, the most important characteristic of big data is the volume, validity, velocity, and so on and so forth, that you can see there. So it is very important to know in that data, which you are giving, how to use that data to make it meaningful. When it comes to active learning is the learning where we involve online and also face-to-face. Like what Satan was talking about, blended learning. That is what we call hybrid. It is an hybrid because you can teach in both in both ways. Noting that when you are teaching this particular two models, you teach them as a hybrid, each of them has one living with students. When you go to the hybrid, when we use the big data, there is learning analytics. And students use data for assessment, they can also use to observe the required patterns. For example, like today, if you are using AI to teach, the systems which we use like Moodle, KWUST, they should be able to communicate the behavior of that student. So you have prediction even in class, you know, these people are meeting. These are the characteristics, and you can read and inform the system out of that. You can even know the ones who can fail. The ones who can fail and the ones who can pass. Because the behavior is also always monitored by this AI unit. Then there's curriculum optimization. How to design course, how to deliver those methods and the face you are supposed to get. AI is supposed to guide you on that. Then you have also predictive modeling. The student can identify at least students and take academic measures and also take academic actions. Because they will be able to get the predictive modeling, will be able to give each student and they can be able to take their action. What is the benefits of this hybrid learning? One of them is flexibility. Hybrid learning, you can do it wherever the student is. That's the the students have in the program. They can sometimes be another everything and they are learning it. Because it is also monitors. If you use what we call AI tools to monitor where the student is, you can be able to get it. Then there is also the interactive learning. You can be able to interact with whatever you are doing. Like if you are doing an experiment, you can do what we call simulation. Instead of doing the history. Then there is lesson planning on that side, because you tell lesson plan. It is just like what we call the syllabus. Then you don't need to go to start forming committees, giving the key, and then you come up with a curriculum of the month. You just sit down within a few minutes, you present the curriculum, and you can be able to discuss, and AI will give you the perfect answer. Nothing, the model which I use is just a language model which is supposed to interpret whatever you want. Then there is online result tracking. The online, so that you can track the results what explains that. Because like the presentation which was here before, that's what we are calling collaborative learning. Collaborative learning. But how do you assess those students? It's only AI tools which can give you better results. Then there is expert learning, where an expert, today you need an expert, you don't need that expert to have to take the exam. Maybe you can also foster growth of partnerships and networks. This network are what build universities and advanced to see universities has also been linked. You can see the partnership. And they are different components with the house and they get money. Why do they get buy very expensive phones? Because they are paid in dollars. And that business is very difficult to stop. Because we have the resources, but we have no jobs around. So students can get those jobs properly. So that is actually our plan, something which the government has never even touched. No, that has created more jobs than even the affordable housing. I don't know how you are like there are many people getting jobs outside using computers. That's the comfort of their homes. They get more money than in the share and job. So it's good to look at that. But this comes with that challenge. There is what we call data privacy and ethics. Data privacy, that's data which we are talking about. How secure is it? How secure is it? So that data is not distorted and becomes maybe fake news and the rest. There is also the digital divide, where infrastructure gaps must be addressed. Gas today, we are now moving from the infrastructure now to the physical gadgets. Just provide software gadget and maybe connectivity. You have solved that problem of infrastructure. I mentioned like the real model which we use. The real will not find this maybe big labs. No. Students can access from anywhere, the Wi-Fi. And we have given hotspots and we have given also the power points. They just go there and they do their work. So you don't need rooms. Look at the libraries which we have. Libraries people have shifted. They are now looking for information in the world. in the internet. Then there is faculty readiness. There is a problem of scaling, maybe of scaling educators to AI and data analytics. Because there are many things you should not be able to as a faculty, to read overnight. You just go where it gives you the information. Listen, the global part of faculty readiness is what is making most of our institutions last year. Because you find some of the faculty have not changed with time. And I can say with confidence, the threatened job today is the teaching and lecturing job. I don't know whether you are saying that. Because sometimes we teach students, they already know what you are teaching because they can access the information. You can't solve their mobile phones. They are back there. So one day you come and say, you will not do exams because you are not in school. They will show you and tell you, I was absolutely better things than what you teach. What will you do? That's why you find that now there are students who are there's something called homeschooling. I don't know whether you have that experience. A student has never gone to school, as a private. Who teaches that student? It is the parent, isn't it? What they can solve a problem is be able to collaborate across disciplines. What we are doing across disciplines. Like today, what we are doing now is starting multidisciplinary. No longer you are a lawyer, you are doing just legal services research. You have to interact with other people in business, in education, in politics, in the computer science and others. Because even if you take the funding today, it is based on multidisciplinary research. Single research methodology is not, because at the end of the day, when you are doing agriculture, you will bring the equivalent of ICT there. It will be there. In education, you have to bring it, unless you are doing a tradition of which cannot be even approved. So it is good to know that you have to collaborate across the field. The challenges which we have there, digital inequality. This must be addressed to ensure there is no student who is not student. I always talk about problems in the news of education, where it comes to whatever they are bringing to us. You saw some schools, the way they are in some in Kenya history. I think you saw some schools. When you go there and talk about CBD, tell me whether the students will be able to understand. When a student is watching from outside, another from there, our young people, you don't expect that student to have a guide or to see. So it's better we solve those problems there and we also move upward. But not assuming everybody like the people already living around and we are the rest. There are people there who the Ministry of Education needs also to see how to approve it. Unless you are a country where you have up and up on the other side. But I'm training and support. Somebody should be trained for what you call hybrid. Hybrid is very fun. And I know some of the universities are doing it. And there are no what this was for action. Now I go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is one of the technologies which AI has brought on board. And I know this is where now learning comes in. ChatGPT should be seen like a library. And you can see I've connected this particular ChatGPT in our education with what we call construction learning theory, which involves real experience, critical thinking, social interaction, active learning, contextual learning, and so on and so forth. So that now our education can have a meeting. So in this ChatGPT, which was brought used in 2015 by somebody called Sam Altman from Finland, this person came to an idea of having a learning model. It's a language model which uses what we call deep learning, so that you can be able to solve all of this in higher education. And individual feedback, research. And they also really class rankings and competitiveness to include university delivery. When you check university rankings, most of them, they are based on applications, all applications and names of people. But when you ask them, what innovation have you done on number of years to find the example? You never knew. Today our children are better in using these devices than us. I don't know whether you have seen that. Your child can be able to get things which are here than you. Actually, most of us, when we want to be assisted on a level of phone is here. Here is bad. They solve the problem. Now imagine that child who only goes to school and finds a teacher who doesn't even have that. I'm a Magabambe, and this is the child is more knowledgeable. Even the teacher doesn't know this CBC one. This CBC one I'm never talking about in Bali. If I have a mama inside I want to Google. And I'm here. And I go, you find him in the next minute is playing outside. Why? He has already got the answer. It is not a matter he was going to think. Thinking now is being overtaken by technology. And when you check big data and artificial intelligence, they are the process of transformation. Process, especially in education. And they let us study what we call interdisciplinary innovation, that refers to the AI in education. So very soon, education will be transformed by this sort of devices. But ask yourself, the schools we have designed these people to go, these students will use mobile phones in school. Is this going to last for the next 10 years? Is it going to last? When you check like secondary schools will not last. They will be allowed to use these gadgets because their education demands technology. They demand the technology. Because before, I remember sometimes before, even what we call mathematical tables were not being used. People were being more useful. So that is what technology is. And remember, we need to have a sense of humanity for the sake of our children. Because like now, curriculum should not technology goes on. I almost say that I'm not this. Look at the people that are competing. There is also competition. That is where the world is going. The world is going. And where the world is going, you are clearly seeing. The relation of jobs will be more than it is. Because there are sectors we have not created a job, especially technology. Where we educate people and they should be able to do anything to go to the job. Someone can be in his home a researcher and teach maybe 10 universities where he has never even set foot. Isn't it? Yeah, you just these students online and then you go. Personally, I have supervised and students when I was there. And I have never seen the student as she graduated. Just connection, just speech, and you supervise the years. We went on 3 years, 4 years, she graduated. But we have never met physically. But we meet virtually. You can see that. So that is why. Thank you so much for listening. Those are good and challenging topics. Very good.
A Kenyan who can be working in Philippines but stay in Kenya here. Global competitiveness by equipping them with the right competencies. That is why there is a focus on what we call remote working. That you can be in Kenya here and you are working for Amazon. That is the focus on the 21st century competence. What Daktari has asked about the issue of the traditional pedagogy versus the competence-based pedagogy. That traditionally we thought the custodian of the knowledge was who? Was the lecturer, but was the lecturer really the custodian? It is just a perception that we have had. That is why we are saying with the technology today, you can think you are the custodian. Whomever you are carrying is obsolete. And the learner has the latest. And the learner will challenge you. Studio. You will be having all things say that we have how many planets? 9 planets. Whom Pluto was demoted. What happens? The learner will carry up a hand and tell you, are you aware Pluto was what? Why was Pluto demoted? The lecturer will not have an answer, but already the learner can be able to access the answer. So the question of how do we motivate a learner? There are very, very factors that you need to consider in the idea of trying to motivate a learner. Probably the first thing is number 1, focusing on the growth of this learner. How can you make sure that the learner knows where you are taking him or where you are taking her to? Focusing on the growth. Breaking those competencies into micro skills so that me as a learner I can see what I have acquired today because of attending to this lesson. So when we break them into skills so that the learner can know where they are going to. Number 2 is linking what they are learning to the real world. So that I know the knowledge I'm acquiring in your lecture hall today is applicable where I'm going. I can actually be able to apply part of the knowledge as I go out there. That is why we are talking about linking with the industry. So that I know, so that we are not behaving like what has been happening in our technical training institutions. They are training learners about mechanics, but using the old style, the 1981 model vehicle. You can imagine all our technical training institutions have been having old vehicles which are not roadworthy. But they are the ones they are using to do what? To train. So you are being trained about a carburetor, yet the modern vehicles on the road not have what? What happens when you come out? When they come out, they have to be trained by those who have been handling modern. That's why we are saying now, you
must be able to link with the industry so that me as a trainee, as I come out of your lecture, I know what you are giving me is relevant. Remember those guys who are still teaching typewriting na wanatumia zile old typewriters? So we have to move away from that. That's why the focus on project-based learning, industry partnership, those success stories. Number 3 is about fostering that autonomy and choice. When you allow me to choose what I'm interested in, definitely I'll be motivated. As opposed to saying, when you enter this university, you must do all these courses. That for you must actually be here for 4 good years to do what? To graduate. But how much you are giving me in 4 years that I will require in the industry? That is why the focus on modularized learning is that I can come and pursue the module I require and I go away because I've acquired the right competence. So I don't have to be in the lecture hall for 4 good years to go out there. When I can acquire the skills I require and I can be able to go to the industry. And then number 4 is building a supportive community and then trying to gamify the experience. You know, when you make learning to be fun, naturally the trainees get very motivated. As opposed to a very dull lecture where the only ceremony is reading and writing. So you behave like you are in the Catholic Church or my ACK church, where the only ceremony is stand up and do what? Sit down, stand up, and then you are meant to sing a very dull Psalm 100, being led by a person who is singing so badly. At the end of it all, you cannot be motivated in such a setting. And then also providing that timely and actionable feedback to the learners. I need to know when I've done well immediately. And that is why when you go for modularized learning and online, I can even be able to test myself and I get a feedback. And I will sleep a very happy person that I have already passed that one. I can move to the next. That's why we are talking about competence-based learning, and it can really be able to motivate the learner. And when you highlight the pathways, where am I going, even as I pursue that course that I'm pursuing, I can be very motivated when I know I'm on the right path, as opposed to being taught everything, including what I'm not interested in. Yes. You know, universities have been very interesting. When I was reviewing the University of Puntland curriculum, one of the units they were teaching learners was called first year experience. And they are lectured and they are very happy they have been teaching what? Yeah. So I was asking them, so how important is first year? Why must I know about first? So whose experience is it? So sometimes we teach units colleagues that do not make meaning to the learners. Thank you.
Thank you, remarks.
Thank you. Why you are great? Why can't you be together? Why can't you? One of them you can attribute to, because when somebody is using ChatGPT, it's someone who is knowledgeable on IT. But I can contribute to free education, which was launched as soon as you remember where even the chiefs were going to villages to collect children, and also the cabinet section. Yes. That actually contributed to this because when you take also from that time, most of the institutions in Kenya they adopted ICT as a basic education course. Every student in the university was taking ICT, even primary schools they are taking ICT. So that one may have contributed to this Kenyans to have a lot of knowledge. And also, naturally, Kenyans are very eager to get information, to consume information. We are consumers of information. Then there is also the creativity. You can bear me a witness. When you Kenyan students go to outside, they do very well. It's not like the other countries. One of them is because of the language. Because Kenya is only one of the countries where people can speak pure English. Just listen to English from Uganda and Tanzania. Rwanda and the rest. It's only Kenya who can speak very well with the other nationalities, isn't it? That one is also something which people cannot take care of us. We are that good. Then what are we doing for content creation, not consumers? The issue of plagiarism. Because I said AI is being used as a tool. It is a tool, like another. So when you use AI, you should be able to take your document to a plagiarism software so that it can be checked whether you copy anything. Because when you use ChatGPT, it is just a tool to guide you to do this. And this somebody creating content out of AI is very knowledgeable in IT sector. Then on the copycat, cloning, human cloning. This one should be incorporated in our constitution. So that we can have a policy to incorporate. I think human cloning. What is the disadvantage of that? That should also attract people from the other sector. Because somebody can be wrong. In there you can do that. But that person, you'll be like you, and you can do a lot of that, isn't it? Yeah, our constitution should have that component. Because I know, like now the constitution has 3 genders, isn't it? 3 genders. This thing, ICT should also be able to incorporate it. Because I'm sure very soon human cloning will be everything. The way you are moving, you'll find somebody comes to you and telling you, borrows you money, but it was not the actual person. What do you do? You can make even something like a president, former president, and then he comes to sign for your documents. Then later you realize it's not the actual person. Because human cloning is a syndicate. And I'm sure very soon it will be here. The other thing, what we are talking about, the issue of in Kenya, I think you have noticed, the universities are also being challenged by some of the middle level colleges. I don't know whether you realize that. If you check institutions like Moringa School and many others, those schools, some students are running away from the university to join them, to get the skills, isn't it? Because as we talk about 4 years, those ones will just offer less than 1 year. And the student is employed by the international government. Because most of the institutions today, they don't ask for degrees. They ask for skills. Skills. That issue of skills has to work out students in the universities and also the lecturers and management of universities. Because you have to ensure the product you produce has those skills which can be verified. Because if Moringa is able to verify in 1 year and somebody gets a job, and then maybe even some of the big companies, they don't advertise and we give students with the degrees, diplomas, masters, PhD. They just talk about skills, isn't it? Competence in skills. So that is what our education system should also do. So that is the teacher to the student, you ensure every time that student has the skills needed for the market. The global market. Because if somebody is not, why should you have somebody in the class for 4 years? Even the leading company, Microsoft, they all never completed his university degree. Isn't it? By 7 years, he left and became to employ his classmates. That's why in the university, like where I am, if a student gets a job when he is in the first, second year, even diploma, we don't stop him from learning. What we do, we take him to a mode, maybe evening mode or weekend mode, so that he can be able to finish his degree when he is learning. Because if we tell someone to leave that job and he will never get employed in life. Isn't it? It's better the one who has got the job. These days, as a university, we must be able to wake up and live to the reality of the world, what the world wants. Because before I knew when I was in this class, I was employed by the government of Kenya, whether I fail or I pass. Isn't it? But you said it's it. You have seen teachers who are over 45. A teacher who has never been employed at 45. Even if you're employed today, how many years will he work? Unless we consider that teacher to retire in 70 years, like in the universities. Because we were very retired at 6 for very few years. Hata kuwa amekujenga nyumba. Hata reserve. So it is good to realize that this kind of challenges bring also an aspect of change of the constitution, whether we like it or not. You have seen data protection, the way it is. This data protection is very common. If you produce my documents, what happens? So you cannot be arrested to do data protection. Yeah, because you have stored, it's like I think this one now is solved to do that data protection act. If you say that it's not invested, it's not something before. It's used as evidence. And you will be victim. All this human equality should also be done themselves. Because I know we are going to call you evidence. And when you call somebody, you must have a compassion. By law, not a matter of understanding. Another question? You can take one.
Thank you, Prof, for being candid and answering the questions. We are running out of time, kindly. Any other question we can be able to connect in the tea break? Are we together? Allow me, we are taking a tea break, but before then we are going to have a group photo down there. So we all rise up. Then we will be guided. Jerry, after the group photo, then we're going to have our tea served at 10 p.m. 001. We are going for a group photo. Yes. Okay. Group photo. After the tea break, we are going to come back to this venue for further action. Our tea break will be at 10 p.m. So we all go downstairs, please.
Toca lá e vamos. Situation. Sijui hata alikuwa anasema sijui nini. Ona hii. Do you want to continue?